This badge right here is older than me. See, I was born in 1978. I know. Can you believe it? I look so youthful. I barely look like I'm 30. Thank you for saying that. But the first generation Honda Accord went on sale in Australia in 1977. And 47 years later, it's still going. The 11th generation Accord has just arrived, and this time around it is packed with new tech for Honda. It comes with a hybrid powertrain, and I think it looks pretty cool, but it's also creeping into premium territory now. So, should you look at something like this instead of a hybrid family SUV or another premium sedan? It's wild that there've been 11 generations of Accord. It was such a popular model in the 80s and 90s, and even in the early 2000s with the Accord Euro. But over the last decade, it's been a bit meh. Honda reckons that changes with the new model, but given the expected low take-up of large sedans like this, Honda's only offering one very well-specified hybrid grade. It's called the e-HEV RS. It costs $64,900 drive away, which is quite expensive. But bear in mind, it is packed with features, and that pricing does include on-road costs. When it comes to rivals, it's in a kind of a space all its own. It's somewhere between a top-end Camry hybrid and something like a Lexus ES 300h hybrid. But does it have Lexus levels of equipment? It kind of does, actually. Just some of the standard gear includes a panoramic sunroof, a 10.2-inch digital instrument cluster, an 11.5-inch head-up display, a 12-speaker Bose audio system, and a 12.3-inch multimedia setup with built-in Google Assistant, Maps and Play. Check my written review at carsguide.com.au for more details on standard specification. It's a really lovely, uncomplicated, simple design, and it's quite in keeping with Honda's other current models, like the Civic, for example, and the lovely looking HR-V. Now, this is the RS grade, so that cops a sporty body kit. And as you can see, that means things like black side skirts, also around the front and the rear, blacked out pillars and mirror caps, and it also gets a black spoiler. Now, I don't mind it so much on some of the darker colours you can get the Accord in, but it does look quite bold on the white paint you see here. It's also got some really nice 18-inch wheels. So the interior design will be familiar to anyone that's been in a current generation Honda, like the Civic, for example. It's got the same horizontal theme across the dash, and that includes the interesting integrated air vents that are hidden behind this quite cool kind of diamond mesh thing running across the width of the dash. I really like the design elements, the toggles for the air vents. I think they're really interesting, quite cool touch there. Elsewhere, you've got a really nice 3-spoke steering wheel. Ambient lighting is standard, so if you want to razz up the interior, you can by changing the color. There's a lot of red stitching, of course, being the RS, sporty vibe inside and out. So you've got that on the steering wheel and the seats and other parts of the cabin as well. The seats are really comfortable. They don't look particularly high-end necessarily, but they're quite plush and feel very supportive as well. You won't find many buttons in here. Everything's kind of housed in the screen, which we'll get to in the practicality section, but just a handful of buttons here around this dial, which I'll also explain soon. But overall, a really nice execution. It hasn't kind of broken any new ground. It's definitely fancier than a Camry, but maybe not quite as plush as a Lexus. There's a new dial that Honda calls an experience selection dial, and it allows users to customize interior modes by choosing their preferred aircon, audio, and lighting settings. There's also over-the-air updates in the new Accord. So this is a pretty large sedan, so in unsurprising news, there is quite a decent amount of space up front, certainly across between the driver and the passenger, but also heaps of headroom, acres of legroom. Visibility is actually pretty good in this thing as well, despite the kind of sloping rear windscreen. The pillars aren't too thick, so you can see quite a bit out the front. There's a reasonable amount of glass. So storage is a bit of a mixed bag. The glove box really only fits the driver's manual and that's about it. But the central bin here is massive. It's quite deep, it's quite wide. You can fit a lot of items in here and hide them away securely. 2 decent sized cup holders as well, kind of different levels there. You can also chuck your phone in between here too. There is a phone charger down here. It hasn't worked for me the whole time I've had this Accord, so something's gone wrong there. Unless I'm missing something, you do have to press a button. I've tried that, that didn't work either. Big bottles just fit in the doors up in the front, and it's a reasonable amount of storage for a car like this. If it was an SUV, the CR-V has a few more nooks and that kind of thing. When it comes to the tech, so Honda has been talking up the tech in this car. It's the first Honda to come with inbuilt Google. So that means you've got things like Google Maps built into the infotainment. You don't have to connect to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay to access Google Maps. It's right here on this system. You can log in and connect your Google to everything. You've got one of the Google Home setups, you can connect it to that and tell the system to turn the air conditioning on at home or whatever you want to do. It's pretty clever like that. You can also use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto if you're not a big fan of using that system, but it does have built-in Google Assistant as well, which is pretty clever. So it's basically just a much better version of, you know, voice-activated controls, which you get in a lot of cars these days, but because it's Google, it's just a little bit clearer. I'll give you an example. Hey Google, turn the heat up.
Sure, turning up the temperature by 2 degrees.
So easy. It's also got a digital instrument cluster, which is quite clear, and quite a sizable head-up display too. So they are talking up the tech for a good reason, and so far it's been pretty impressive. Multimedia setup is really solid. Again, that Google Assistant's pretty good, and the menu layout is really easy as well. So the new Accord is even longer than the previous generation Accord, which was already a pretty big car, but the wheelbase remains the same length. That's no bad thing because the previous car was quite a big thing and had a lot of space in the back, and so does this one. As you can see, I'm sitting behind my just over 6 foot tall driving position, and I've got so much leg room, it's ridiculous. Tow room is slightly cramped, but nothing to really complain about. My issue in the back seat is, as a 6 foot tall person, my head is scraping the roof liner here. So in going for a nice sloping roof line and that lovely silhouette, it has impacted headroom. So people under my height will probably be fine, but just something to be aware of. Elsewhere though, the seats back here are really comfortable, very nicely done. You've got amenities like this pull down armrest. This also has a ski port here if you're into that kind of thing. And you've also got map pockets on the rear of both of the front seats. A couple of USB-C ports down here, knee level only air vents. You've also got these very handy sun blinds here on both of the rear windows, which is very handy in very hot Australia. And in terms of storage, one of these will easily fit into the door cavity as well. Not a lot of other storage back here, but you might not really need it. Ambient lighting, of course, as you get in the front, and it's a nice little space apart from the headroom. So the new generation Honda Accord actually has quite a sizable boot, 570 litres worth of cargo space to be precise. That's quite a bit more than the Lexus ES Hybrid, which is about 454 litres. But there's a reason for that. The Lexus offers you a temporary spare wheel, whereas the Honda, as with all Honda hybrids, you don't get any form of spare wheel, you just get a tyre repair kit. Now, Honda claims that some of its buyers actually prefer a tyre repair kit because it's easier than changing a wheel by the side of the road. You just pop the goo on and then you're good to go. But I would suggest that some people in regional Australia might disagree with that. Now it is quite a big space, but if you need more space, you can lower the rear seats. But it's a bit of a quirky one, and it's the same system that was found in the previous generation Accord. So to lower the backrest, you pull this little lever here in the boot, and then you have to go around and still manually lower the backrest. It doesn't do it automatically. This just unlatches it. So it's not a super convenient system, to be honest. So the previous generation Accord was available as a hybrid, and it was also offered with Honda's excellent 1.5 litre turbocharged petrol engine. No luck this time around, it's just available as a hybrid, and this time it's the same hybrid setup that you'll find in the quite good CR-V SUV. And that means a 2 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine combined with a 2-motor hybrid setup. That drives the front wheels via an electronic CVT, and it is a lovely smooth powertrain. The hybrid Accord sips just 4.3 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle. That's exactly the same figure as its predecessor. It's also more frugal than the Lexus ES 300h and the Toyota Camry hybrid. So I'm a big fan of the Honda Civic Hybrid. I think it's one of, if not the best small car money can buy at the moment. And the CR-V Hybrid is a really good thing as well, probably one of the best family SUVs you can buy, and that shares its powertrain with this thing. So the transition from electric power to petrol propulsion is really smooth, smoother than some of the other hybrid systems I've experienced. And it's just a really lovely, fairly quiet powertrain. You can certainly hear when the engine kicks in, but again, the transition's really smooth. And it's got an e-CVT, but it seems to have stepped gears, which is a bit weird, but at least it makes it feel a little bit more like a normal transmission. So this hybrid system does allow you to drive in electric-only power, just not for very long. So you'll notice it when you're, driving at low speeds around a car park, for example, or even on a road up to about 30-35 kilometers an hour. Honda has talked up how much work they've done to make this cabin a bit quieter than the previous Accord. And I know previous generation Hondas generally have a tendency to be a bit noisy, and you hear a lot of road noise, and that has been knocked out with the new Accord. There's definitely still a little bit of engine noise, but apart from that, wind noise is kept out, not a lot of tyre roar. It's a pretty hushed cabin. So it is pretty responsive from a standing start, nothing that'll make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up or anything like that, but it's got some pretty nice urge there. And I must say, on the freeway when you want to overtake, there's absolutely no hesitation there at all. There's plenty of get up and go, so you're not going to be left stranded. Steering is actually pretty sharp in this thing. It's got a decent amount of feel, and it's very much point and shoot, which is great. For such a big car, it handles really well. Doesn't matter if it's a twisty road or a big kind of sweeping bend, it just holds the road really, really well. It's quite grippy, those 18-inch wheels on Michelin tyres. I'm just surprised. I thought it would be a little bit more wallowy given the size of it. The Accord has not been tested by ANCAP, and the previous model wasn't crash tested either. Given the low volumes of this car, it may not get a rating at all. The Honda Sensing Driver Assistance Suite has ramped up with the new Accord, and it now includes the usual features you'd expect, plus traffic jam assist, a road departure mitigation system, and a driver attention monitor. Check out my written review at carsguide.com.au for more details on safety. So the new Accord comes with Honda's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty and 5 years of roadside assistance. It also comes with Honda's quite good servicing program, which is basically a 5-year capped price servicing program that will just cost you $199 per year for the first 5 years, which is pretty hard to beat. Now, the servicing schedule is every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres. Usually it's 15,000 kilometres, so that's a little bit disappointing, but honestly, on balance, this is a really impressive servicing offer from Honda. For a nameplate that's been around as long as I have, Honda's done a great job modernising the Accord. If you're not wedded to an SUV and you value things like build quality, reliability, style, efficiency, and an engaging drive, then the Accord ticks a lot of boxes. Also, if you're not wedded to a premium brand, you could save yourself some money. For more on the Honda Accord, head to carsguide.com.au.